Welcome back to another episode of The Other Side of the Struggle. I have with me today Tyrell Wiltsie. He is the mastermind founder, like the genius behind Sweet Creek Community Co-op. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have a hard time saying that, Tyrell.
My name plus that, yeah, it is a mouthful.
I think usually I'm pretty good at tongue ties, but it's all good. Um, but we're really excited to have Tyrell because one of the things he's going to be doing is doing some masterminds at the Rejuvenate You event that we're going to be doing with the Shaoli Hope Center. Now, this is really exciting because he's been doing masterminds and business mastery for over 10 years. Uh, and, as we've been getting to know each other, one of the things that we've really found that kind of anchor both of us to our passions and our purposes for what he does and what I do is this idea of trust. And one of the things that I get asked about all the time is how do we trust again? And so Tyrell,
That's a big one.
fabulously, it really is. He's going to actually interview me today for you guys because
Yep.
where this is something I get asked a lot, you know, I would definitely want to share some of my thoughts because I guarantee there are some of my listeners today that are wondering about this very thing. You know what I mean?
Totes. Totally. And it comes up a lot in my work and your work, and I'm really glad to be on and then have some common ground. I want to share this with my people too. So your listeners probably know who you are. And if they don't, we'll get to know who she is because she's awesome. But for my listeners, as I'm sharing this out, just tell me a little about who you are. What's your background? What's your passion? Like what speaks to you regarding the work that you do? Just
Sure.
flow with it.
Yeah. So a little bit about me now. If you're a previous listener, you probably have gone and found my first episode, which is my story, right? But I'm going to share a little bit more about that again in this episode. And basically, very, very shortened version is, I've dealt with a lot of childhood trauma, dealt with marital trauma, due to addiction and just mindset stuff that both him and
Mm.
I have brought to the table, And so it's not like I'm a stranger to pain or a stranger to trauma or a stranger to relationships that turn around and betray you. I mean, I've even had friends, turn around and betray me in a very, very big and sometimes very dangerous way. And so I've seen all aspects in a way
Yep.
of what trauma does. And so, it got to a point in my life where I just couldn't deal anymore. I could not continue doing things the way I had been doing them. Something had to change.
Yep.
And it took a conversation with God.
Mm.
And, for your listeners, I'm devout Christian. I love
Yep.
God. I love Christ. And it took a deep conversation with him and possibly some swearing.
However, the truth gets out, it gets out.
It does. But you know what was so cool is that was the least judged I have ever felt,
Mm.
even though I was so like doing everything I had ever been taught not to do when you're in a
Right.
conversation with God. I did it.
Yep.
And I totally felt anchored
Hmm.
finally from that one
Yep.
conversation. And
Well, and that's
from
what unconditional love will do, right? It
yeah,
anchors you into the place. It anchors you into the experience.
yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. And wisdom and truth
Hmm.
and art all these things that can help us learn to trust. There's
Yep.
that question of how do I trust again, right?
Yep.
And it was exactly the same question I was asking when I went to God. And I heard just clearly, like you and I are talking,
Yep.
have you done everything you can do? What
Mm.
if you gave me your will? Because to me, with my relationships, I had done everything I could possibly think of.
Right.
But the one thing I hadn't done was let completely go and focus just on a relationship with, in a sense, love.
Mhm.
And this is what,
Surrendering completely to love.
yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Because, and I talk about this to people who aren't necessarily Christian. Well, what's your highest form of love then?
Yeah.
You know? Because maybe it's a mountain, maybe it's the tree, maybe it's nature. There's lots of different kinds of ideas about what
Mhm.
love is.
And maybe all those are God to you too. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But to me, I think of like a perfect love, something that always sees me, always cares about me, something like I love the idea of Christ, you know, being so loving that
Mhm.
he took everything on so that way I could have the best path forward.
Yep.
He
And
totally
swear at
mowed
God
the
when you
lawn.
need to.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
Totally. And so it's like I learned to trust through that. And he gave me a whole different perspective about who I was.
Yeah.
He gave me a whole different vision of the one that I had. And I'm also a Latter-day Saint, and one of my favorite quotes is by Ezra Taft Benson, and he talks about men and women who turn their lives over to God can find that He can do more for their lives than what they can. He can
Hey,
raise
isn't
the
that
dead.
crazy? So
Yeah,
some guy who like planned it all out and knows how to all work can do a little bit more than we can by ourselves.
right.
I mean, a little bit, by like a lot of bit.
Yeah, by like a lot of it, right? And it's because because of the love, he
Hmm.
sees things so clearly.
Yep.
And it's that it's if you think about water and when it becomes disturbed, I mean that's exactly kind of what it feels like when we've got all of this emotional pain.
Yep.
This what the heck do I do next? Like I've tried everything. If I divorce this guy, it's going to break my family, but if I stay in the marriage the way I am, it's going to break my
Right.
family. Like, what do I do?
Turbulence. Yeah. There's
Oh,
a reason
total.
we call it turbulence in water and in relationships.
Yeah. And, you know, it was crazy because the minute I felt that love, that just over enveloping, just peace, calm, hey, I'm here.
Yep.
I'm so glad you came to me. I'm so glad you finally turned to me in any
Yeah.
way possible. Everything, it was any way possible. Trust me. I
Hmm.
was like, mm. But everything calmed.
Yeah.
And I knew my next step,
Yep.
you know? And talk about like, what a thing to trust.
Exactly. Yeah. If nobody has or anybody has not experienced trust before, what a beautiful and succinct way to describe it. It's the calm and the knowing, and you just step into it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah. And
Totally.
love facilitates that for sure. Especially in personal relationships and relationships with God and higher self and then the rest of that, but also business, right? Like it may not be as like physically intimate in business, but it's financially intimate and
Mm,
it's emotionally intimate in a lot of cases. It's certainly intellectually intimate. And so you have this relationship where number one, do I trust? Number two, have I been betrayed before? You work a lot with people recovering from betrayal and trying to re-engage or move forward or beyond or whatever the path forward is for them. But that that reconciliation, that learning to trust again, um, it sounds like you've got a really deep and intimate experience with what it takes to get to a space where you want or need to trust and what it takes to surrender to that space of trust and giving over your will and just being like I don't know what's next. I don't know what I need to know and I don't know how to fix or heal or feel better, whatever the betrayal energy is. How do I get beyond that kind of thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, the thing that I loved, and I'm not saying like this would be the case for every person that decides to turn to their highest form of love. But mine, they always like I hear all the time that sometimes God asks you to jump and just trust that he's going to catch you, right?
Yep.
Right? Now I've definitely done that since this process.
Right.
Lots actually, but and he's caught me every single time, but when I was in that space where I was so terrified to trust,
Yep.
he never asked me to do that. He
Right.
simply just said, "Hey, give me this peace, give me this struggle.
Yeah.
Like give it up." And I know, and in a way that kind of was kind of scary because I had this mindset that if I didn't take control and if I
There we
didn't
go.
do every little thing
Yep.
right, that all of the sudden, like everything was going to completely fall apart. Like I was the only thing that was standing in the way of peace and Armageddon,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And to be honest with you, like that was giving myself way too much credit. I'm sorry, it really was.
Yep.
Um, because I thought I had to do it all.
Yeah.
I'm not that invincible,
True.
you
True.
know? Now, I will tell you, I feel so much stronger now,
Hmm.
leaning into this and leaning into peace. And, God has actually recently been helping me release a lot of the money trauma stuff.
Good.
And so and just walking me through these pieces of, hey, okay, it's your next level of trust, it's your next level of trust,
Yep.
it's your next level of trust, and teaching me about worry, honestly, and
Mm.
how oftentimes we let worry drive our lives,
Yep.
and it's that worry that keeps us stuck from getting the result we want. And oftentimes too, if you think about worry, it's a precursor to temptation,
Easily. Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
because
Fear of missing out, fear of being found out,
yeah.
fear of this, fear of that. Yep.
Yeah, or and like fear of never having it, which is that missing
Yep.
out, right? And like then all of a sudden we start having to feel like we have to take all this drastic action,
Yep.
right? Instead of just trusting the process.
Mm.
And that maybe there's something in here that I can learn that will cause this to never happen again.
Yep.
Or to cause more to come to me if I just let go and I just release.
You were talking about um, how kind of your own personal experience has. It's been, I mean, honestly, the experience with betrayal, but also trust, and how deep you've gone into it personally. Seems like it's helped you a lot with not only commiserating with and empathizing with your clients that come in, but also giving them real, tangible, tactical, practical ideas to walk through that trauma and
Yeah.
walk through that betrayal. Do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, one of the things I want to make very, very clear is I'm not a therapist, right? I did go to school. I became an elementary education teacher, right?
Okay.
And which of course, ELED or any education major has to have a lot of psychology and things
Right.
like that in their schooling. So I do
And
have
any
a
hairdresser as well.
right,
They need to be
exactly.
have a psychology degree.
Yeah, they do. They really do. But do I have a degree? No.
Right.
But what I do have is a whole lot of experience. And the crazy thing is I am as grateful for this experience as what I am for my actual degree,
That's awesome.
you know? And
That's cool.
I went through a lot of work for both of the educations that I have now.
Yep.
And, you know, I've gone through therapy, and there's nothing, I'm not saying anything wrong against therapists or anything like that. I have a lot of friends that are therapists. I respect them so much, and I think that they do great, great work. But there's also something to be said about someone who has actually taken that entire journey on their own.
Yeah.
Because, I didn't know about coaching
Right.
when I started my healing journey. And here I am. And obviously I do have coaches now that I work
Yeah.
very much with. I'm fabulous, fabulous friends with my business coach. Love her to pieces. She's been on the
Good.
podcast plenty of times. But when I started this journey, I didn't know what coaching was. And
True.
so my entire education up to the point of like when I realized, oh my gosh, like I'm healed. There's no pain, there's no anger,
Yeah.
there's no, oh my gosh, I'm going to beat you over the head with a chair kind of a
Yep.
response, to the actions of other people around me. I
Yeah.
was no longer the victim.
That's awesome.
And oh, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And I was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, whoa. I'm so excited that this is where I'm at.
Yep.
And then that's when God told me, okay, now go teach everybody. And I was like,
Yeah.
what? Me? Yeah, are
Yeah.
you
In my work,
sure?
we call that absolution, where you fully process the energy and the emotion with it, and now you're even into like a positive, upbeat. Okay, now I have abundance from this thing that was sapping me, that was taking all that I had to maintain, or like whatever the energy around betrayal was. Now it's, oh my goodness, I have so much to share about what I learned, and I'm so grateful for this.
Yeah,
And it's that shift that makes it so that you can be a great coach or a great teacher, or even just a really good listener, which is oftentimes most of what we do, is just create that space for that person to be listened to be heard, to be felt, to be appreciated.
hmm,
um yeah, I
yeah,
I resonate with that. That's awesome.
yeah,
And the amount of trust that, like, trustworthiness is a thing that comes up a lot in my work,
yeah.
and it sounds like it does in yours.
Oh man.
um, right, and it's this, am I worthy of trust, are they worthy of being trusted? But also, like, how cool is it when, like, one of the things that you've gone through is betrayal, and then somebody's like, you're so trustworthy, I can just trust you, I feel
Yes,
like I can tell you anything, kind of thing. And that's a teachable skill. Like, that's the
yeah,
crazy thing, right?
yeah,
That's something that you got to learn the hard way. A lot of us get to learn it the hard way, but
yes,
also there's an easier way, and there's a way that goes quicker, and there's a way that goes
yes.
a little smoother, right?
Hmm.
So, do you want to get into maybe a little bit about your process, like how you bring people from wherever they're at, however they find you in this post or in the middle of a betrayal situation, and kind of how you bring them through to the other side, where trust and maybe some other things that come up for them are waiting to be
Yeah,
picked up and engaged in.
yeah, absolutely. So, I've actually created a process called the 7 pillars
Okay.
of living an unashamed life, because there's so much shame and so much guilt,
Mm.
around betrayal. Like,
Yep.
if a woman decides to kick her husband out because he has been looking at porn and stuff like that,
Yep.
I, there's no judgment or anything, but oftentimes that boundary is very, very shaky because there's so much guilt and so much self-judgment and so much not confident,
Yeah.
in
On both
that
sides.
decision
On
on
both
both
sides of it.
sides.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she's like, man, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I was wrong. Like maybe I'm the one, or and all those things. And all of a sudden, there's no boundary,
Got it.
right?
Yep.
And so we go through this process of the 7 pillars to help them set boundaries, to help them learn to trust, to help them to trust themselves, actually, you know?
It's a big part of it, isn't it?
It's
It's one of
it's
the craziest things. You're like, I don't know if I could trust that person. I don't know if I could trust this stuff outside of me.
yeah,
And then big part of the work is trusting yourself and trusting God and trusting that internal process, that internal litmus of discernment and truth and these other things that,
yeah,
oh, wait a minute. What I actually want to be able to do is trust myself.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and yeah, exactly, because we always worry about like not trusting the people that we have around us, right? But that's actually a
right.
trust issue inside of yourself.
Yep,
And this is something that a lot of people don't realize is they don't feel like they have the ability to make a connection without being hurt in some
right.
way. And that's not something about the other person, that is something about you, right? What you think about you.
Yep.
It's a confidence problem. And the opposite of confidence is worry. And like we were talking about a minute ago, worry is the precursor to temptation. Worry is the
Yep.
precursor to falling
Right.
on your face again
Yeah.
because you're like, I'm trying, but what if,
Yep.
right? And that's
Yep.
exactly what happens. And then we feel like we're in this trauma cycle
Hmm.
on a consistent basis. And so what it took is, and this is the first pillar, is going from expectation, okay, and that's the adversary,
Yep.
because I had all these expectations, but what should happen, what should, and I had to hold on so tight,
Yep.
and going from expectation to intention.
Mm.
The intention is the first pillar.
Right.
So what that looks like is sometimes I had to do the thing that was really, really hard for
Hmm.
me to do. Like get in like think about like what was really going on with
Yep.
my husband, with my kids, with my mom, with my dad, like my neighbors, like why would I act like that?
Mm.
You know?
Yep.
What would I be thinking if I acted like that?
Got it.
What would be going through my head? And
So kind of
that,
empathizing and having compassion.
yeah,
Okay.
empathizing, having compassion, and then considering, I want to also say, like, what was it that I really wanted? And how badly did I want that? What was I really willing to do to get it?
Yep.
Right? Was I gonna try to do things like the incredibly hard way, which was live it and try to get it through
Yep.
expectation,
You did
which
that.
is right? And the
Yep.
expectation is expecting everyone else to go out and get this one thing for you
Yep.
instead of trusting, and here we are, trusting yourself
Yep.
that you can actually receive it, that you can actually attract it, that you can actually have it without having to expect everyone else to go get it for you.
It's big.
It's
That's
really
that.
big.
I mean, that right there probably shifts people from that victim mentality into the not necessarily a hero mentality yet, but at least a neutral or in a space of like possibility rather than everything is broken and everything's going to stay broken because nobody will do what I need them to do. La 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 la. That whole
Yeah.
betrayal victim stuckness.
Well, you actually just mentioned the second adversary, which is the victim,
Mm,
which is really interesting, that you're talking about that because yes, that's exactly what it does, but it takes you into the second pillar. So out of the victim mode, thinking
mm,
that everything is happening to you
yep.
instead of everything happening for me. And that's what we're
Mm,
talking about in the second pillar, which is the bounce back.
that's huge.
Getting to know yourself.
Yep.
Like that is key. We get so distracted in life,
Yep.
and what everybody else is doing is a giant distraction, and then we take and we think that our joy is a spendable commodity, and
Got it.
so we spend our joy on this results like we cannot be happy until this happens,
Okay.
right? And so we're taking all of our time, our effort, and our focus and everything, putting it on like this problem, and we're really, really, really trying to make it do exactly what we want it to do. And then,
Because control, again,
right?
we're trying to control it. Yep.
Right? Exactly. And then once we take that off, we realize that that is like if you are spending money on something that's not going to make you money back,
Mhm.
eventually you take that money back and you find something that's going to make you some money,
Yep.
right? And that's what
And
we
if
do
people
with
learn to do
joy.
that with their emotions or their energy or their free time, that's
Yeah.
going to change things significantly for them.
So if you take that time, you take that, mentality, that emotional investment,
Yep.
and you put it into a relationship with yourself and a relationship with God or your highest form of love.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, now we're starting to get a return on our investment.
Yep.
And our emotional bank accounts aren't feeling so depleted all the time,
Right.
right? And that's that
It's huge.
second pillar. It's so huge.
Yeah.
And I remember, when God showed me who I was, I was like, dang, I'm awesome,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. You got to
And
be pretty awesome to be on this planet at this time.
yeah, exactly. Really,
Yeah.
truly. And that includes everybody listening to this. Like your audience,
True.
my audience, right?
True.
And that takes you into the next piece though, and that is the brain on board. I'm sorry. I used to call it the brain on obey, but it's the brain on boarding process now.
Wait.
And
You shifted it from obeying to onboarding.
yes,
Seems like you gave up a little bit of control.
right? Right? But we want to get our brain on board with what it is we truly want and getting it into a visionary state.
Right.
And the opposite or the adversary to the brain on board is distraction.
Right.
And how often are we getting distracted by all the gunk, right?
Yep.
And all of like trying to invest everything into the problem instead of, investing everything into the solution.
Yeah.
And that's something that's key. And the more we invest time into the love
Hmm.
and this peace and this, idea of forgiveness, it is for the giving, not for the keeping. That's
Ah,
the reason why
yes.
it's
That's
called that,
key. Yep.
right?
Forgiveness, not
Yeah.
for takeness.
Or for keepness, like it's
Yep.
for the giving. And so when we give these things up and there we just kind of strip things back, we can get a clearer picture on what it is we want and how to get there. We get a clearer picture of who we are
Yeah.
and how to be there, right?
It's
And
awesome.
all of the sudden, like energy shifts, mentality shifts, your actions shift, and
Yep.
you start to cherish things like uh, courage,
Yep.
forgiveness,
Yep.
peace,
Yep.
strength, morality, all of these things that are
Trust.
key. Trust,
Hmm.
trusting ourselves, right? And trusting our
Yep.
highest form of love, trusting
Yeah.
love.
That's huge.
Yeah. So that's the third one. And it's so huge. The
Well,
fourth
and
piece,
you're gonna be walking people through this process at the Share Holy Hope event, right? So
hmm
this is a big part of what you're going to be bringing. So when people are thinking about this, because we got tickets on right now, we've got it so that people can get with a buddy, with a business partner, a spouse, a lover, a friend, whoever it is, and they can be part of this experience and go through this with you. Um, what have been some of like your favorite uh, experiences or your favorite successes that people have had, and it was basically like, what can people expect going to this event and working with you on your seven pillar process and really going through this. I'm going to release some betrayal. I'm going to find some trust. Like, what can people expect from going through this event with you.
Well, I'll tell you about one of my favorite clients. She came to me, her and her husband actually came to me a while ago. And her husband worked with a business partner of mine, and then I worked with her. But I took her through the 7 pillars process. Okay, and what normally took my previous clients like 2.5 years to achieve,
Mhm.
took her 3 months.
Dang,
Yeah,
she was ready.
she was super ready. And
That's
like I
awesome.
said, the process is so incredibly streamlined now
Mm,
that it's just like you go through everything and she was calmer, had way less anxiety. Like we're
that's
talking
awesome.
about an 80% reduction in anxiety. She was able to go out and play with her
Wow.
kids.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's an entirely different life
yeah,
with 80% less anxiety. That's
yes,
like, let me do the math. 3 times the amount of life,
yeah,
at
exactly,
least.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And, her and her husband are both like taking care of each other and
Mm,
like communicating better. And, there's not the judgment that used to be there anymore, causing the pain for both
huge.
of them. Her
Yeah.
kids are more confident. She's more confident. He's more confident. And get this kicker, she has just started opening her own coaching business.
What?
Yes, she started
That's
opening
so
her own
cool.
coaching business, started helping police wives through
Oh, that's
their
so cool.
betrayal trauma,
Yeah.
and has now increased, just because she went through this program, her and her husband have increased their monthly income by almost $3,000 a month.
Isn't that crazy how that works when you trust each other and you get rid of anxiety, how much your finances improve?
It's insane. And
That's
so like
awesome.
any program, like that's the coolest thing about this. And I've seen this key after time after key after time.
Hmm.
Like my clients are going through this process and they make the money back.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
that's
had,
that's one of the things about like personal mentoring or coaching or whatever else that is like that it's that hidden multiplier where the amount that you invest, you start to not only get back what you invested, but beyond what you
yes,
invested. And
exactly.
that's a key thing is like a lot of people, they'll talk about cost and they'll talk about it cost me this much and it's going to take this much and that much. And especially working in betrayal, I'll only trust you if you do these listed things, kind of thing. Like they're used to this cost, 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 cost. But if you look at it as far as investment goes, it it literally is beyond exponential, the growth that happens when these things start to take over. And like you said earlier, when you give over your need for control and simply surrender to this higher process, this higher consciousness, this higher self that knows all the things that could and will happen and what to do about them, and you get into this space of trust, and your clients get into this space of trust because you've refined this into these 7 pillars. And it sounds like even beyond the event, you're going to have support for these folks, to
Yeah,
go even further beyond, to
yeah,
do, in whether for some it's a couple of years to get through it because it's deep or it's hard or they don't have the time or energy or whatever, or like this gal, ready to go through it, 3 months, and she's coaching and she's doing all this other cool stuff
mhm,
because she was ready to do the work. She was ready to step beyond betrayal into trust, courage, joy, whatever comes beyond that, right?
yeah. So, and that was part of the reason why she was such a joy to work with too, is just because she was ready to be like, and I think that has to be key to saying, I'm ready to do whatever it takes.
Yep.
I can't stay like this for another month, another year, and I had to get to that point too. I was like, I can't do this another
Yeah.
day. I literally cannot do
There's
this
a
another day.
yeah. There's a quote or something. It's something to the effect of, um, when the pain of staying where you are overwhelms the fear of the future, change happens,
Mm.
right?
And
So when you
it's beautiful.
are stuck, pain, anger, control, whatever it is for you, and then you're like, this needs to change, and it does. It just
Yeah.
happens so quick.
Yeah. And and it's lasting. That's the other thing too, that
That's the
like
key.
it's not something that you slide back into. No, this is a
Yep.
lasting change. I've been doing this also for 10 years,
Nice.
and it's been probably the last 2 years where I've actually started implementing the 7 pillars, but and seeing major change. But you end up falling in love with this version of you, and you don't ever want to go
Whoa.
back.
Did you just say self love is part of this?
Isn't it?
People can love themselves?
What?
Shoot. Are we doing this in March or February? Because we're going to have some self love going on here.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. We are, because the thing is, and this is my firm philosophy, to love yourself is to love the creations, the highest creations, the most gorgeous creations of God.
True.
And that is to trust him.
Yep.
Absolutely to trust him. To think that you are a mistake is to call God a liar and a failure.
That's powerful talk. That's going to be difficult for some people to hear and really resonate with,
It
because
is,
it's one thing to beat yourself up, but that guy upstairs, you're gonna call him all those names.
right?
That's a tough place to be in.
Right? And that's the thing, like the more I've worked on my relationship with God, the higher and stronger my relationship gets with myself.
Yeah.
And the more I let go of, like I said, those expectations, and there's still 4 more pillars, right, that we haven't talked on, but
Yeah.
it it anchors you into each one of these ways of life
Yep.
that helps you feel like a fantastic human.
That seems like a great place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. I can feel the peace and joy and calm in your experience of that, but I can also tell that the gal that you mentioned and countless other clients over the decade have come to that space. And as you say, it isn't a, well, here's a fun temporary experience like a sugar high, but this is like a lifestyle
Yeah.
of self love and trust and courage and joy and abundance and all these other yummy things. And it all comes from releasing the bad habits of betrayal and control and anger and all the other things that go with it.
Mhm. And
That's awesome.
also, and accepting, that some of the lessons that come through healing might feel a little bit painful,
Mm,
but once you realize that that's just truth slicing through a festering wound,
wow.
you
Ooh,
know,
that verbiage. Oh my goodness.
that is,
Truth slicing through a festering wound. If
and
y'all didn't feel that, tune into that, because get some truth on your wounds and your sores there. That's amazing.
yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
that's what ended up happening is all of a sudden all of that like emotional infection left, and
Yep.
what was replaced was solid truth. That, and
That's
it's
awesome.
stuff that you can bank on.
Yeah. Literally. And in this gal's case, she's making money hand over fist with it now.
Yeah, yeah,
That's awesome.
exactly. And you can turn around and use these pillars on money too, like
Yeah.
your money story, whatever you want to change. Like
Yep.
these pillars are so solid.
That's awesome. That's super cool. So people, I'm sure, are going to love on your podcast. So we're going to put those links below, right?
Mhm.
But do you just want to like pitch the podcast so people can like follow along? But also, we're going to put your tickets link in there so that
Mm.
people can get their tickets, their VIP tickets, whatever they need to do to connect with you. But just help me remember, when's the event? It's March
March 7th, 8th, and 9th in Provo.
on in 2024. So we have
Hmm.
about 6-ish months, 5-ish months now. Um, but we know that those tickets are going to sell out pretty darn quick, which is why
Yeah.
we're doing all of these interviews and stuff and letting people know if you want to be part of this, if you're like diehard fan on the podcast, get your tickets right now, bring a friend and have a have a good old time with it and go through this process live in person with a group. And oh my goodness, group facilitation and like group work, it's crazy how much of the same stuff comes up for people and how much more potent the process is when somebody's able to watch somebody else go through it or go through it
Yeah.
themselves and serve so many people right in the moment, right in the experience. And then somebody, invariably, at least 10 people come up from a thing and say, thank you so much for doing that. I needed to hear that. I needed to feel that. I went through my own process while you were doing yours, that kind of thing. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, if they found this podcast, they'll see the podcast. But if, because I'm going to share this onto my stuff too, if they want to get to your podcast, where do they find that?
So it's on all major platforms. It's called The Other Side of the Struggle: Healing from Betrayal Trauma.
Okay.
And you'll see my picture on there. Usually I'm a little cuter. I got out of the shower right before, Tyrell and I.
That was a very Pippi Longstocking.
Yeah, I
Uh,
know.
I
Very,
love it.
very, right? Now with the little
Ta-da!
curling,
Yeah,
right? We
it
love it.
works.
But yeah, I gotta go fluff this stuff. But you know, I'm on there. We're gonna be talking like I said, with Tyrell. But also, the one thing I want to mention as well with the Rejuvenate You tickets.
Mm.
So I'm offering free tickets to the
What?
Rejuvenate You. Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes. I'm
That
offering a
because
free
that's
ticket.
like what, $50-$60 value in pre-sale, and then VIP is even more than that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, so you got
Yeah.
some free tickets. Who
I've got
gets
some
free
free
tickets?
tickets. Anyone that wants to come and actually start the process of healing with these pillars.
So anybody that wants to work with you directly
Hmm.
and they get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you? Get free tickets.
So if you want to get a hold of me, I'll give Tyrell my Calendly link. You can go ahead and book a call,
Okay.
and chat with me one-on-one. The other thing too you can do is you can search out my podcast. You can search me out on Facebook, Erin Anderson Betrayal Trauma Coaching, or I also have a group called The Other Side of the Struggle, same thing as my podcast, and that's for I'm recently starting to open it up to men as well that are dealing with betrayal trauma as
Okay.
well. So
Very cool.
yeah, so we've got all of that. So if you guys are looking for a free ticket, contact me. Let's see if we can't help you with some of these
Yeah.
pillars.
Well, but
And
also if you don't want to wait until March because she's super cool and awesome to work with, you can connect with her through there, and then maybe you could have a free ticket for later, or even better, you get your business partner or your spouse or whoever
mhm,
else you maybe went through the betrayal with or has co-experienced betrayal or something like that to be part of the experience as well.
yeah,
So podcasts is just kind of a soft, hey, this is kind of cool and let's listen and feel good kind of thing, maybe go through some stuff. But you can actually work with Erin before the event and get some
mhm.
one-on-one personal growth, make a couple $100,000 or whatever by the event, and life will be groovy and grand. you know
See, there you go. I'm
Life
game.
is
Let's make
easy.
it happen.
Let's make it
Seriously.
happen.
Yeah.
That's awesome. um Before we wrap it up, is there anything like that you wish people would ask you or you really want people to know before we go? Because people watching this, they're gonna bond with you, they're gonna bond with me.
Mhm.
um, but in a lot of cases they may not be able to know what to ask or know what the next step is, or maybe there's just this one little nugget that they're like, gosh, that sounds like me, and maybe that's what I need, or this or that, and gosh, a free ticket would be nice, but that's all the way in March. Like, what for the people listening that watched it all the way through, and thank you for that, watching it all the way through. What message do you want to leave them with? What still gets to be said?
Let me check into this for a second. That's such a good question. Um, you know, I want to say that you are loved
Yeah,
irrevocably, incredibly, beyond anything you can possibly fathom. You are loved. And,
true.
when you step into believing that, this is where increase happens.
Mm,
You know, um, believing that love exists for you, specifically for you.
yeah.
Just to give those of you that are on here just an idea of how loved you are, okay? Where
Mm,
do you get your bananas from? The grocery store, right?
yeah, usually.
Usually, you go get them from the grocery store, and where are they grown? Puerto Rico, Ecuador,
Hmm.
all those places that are thousands of miles from us.
Yep.
You are loved so much that God created a banana in Puerto Rico or Ecuador, grew it on a tree, knew it was going to be specifically for you, filled it with specific nutrition for your specific body at that specific moment that you're going to eat it,
Mm,
sent it from Ecuador to your grocery store,
yep.
and knew that you would be eating it. Now, you tell me if that is not love.
It's awesome.
You're
It's kind
loved.
of bananas when you think about it.
Yeah, right. It is. It is. But that's the thing. Like, the entire universe was created for you.
Yeah.
And it's kind of mind-blowing to think about it, but it's so true.
Yeah.
And when you start leaning into that love, this is where we start to find that increase.
Yep.
If we're feeling a lack, how do we love it out?
Yep.
And because love is something that increases, this is how we increase peace. This is how we increase money. This is how we
Hmm.
increase relationships. And all of the things that we want in our life come from just love.
True.
So if you are like, yeah, but how do I get that right?
Hmm.
I want you to ask yourself, what is the thing that I need to sacrifice right now
Mm,
to create room for this next step?
yep.
And I know like a lot of people, they get kind of scared about investing, in themselves and
Yep.
learning how to step into this love. But the thing is when you do invest, you're actually giving up some sort of a sacrifice to receive more than you sacrificed.
Yep.
That's the whole idea of investment. So
Yep.
what I want you guys to do is believe that you're lovable.
It's awesome. And sacrifice is a big word, sometimes a heavy word for folks. But for you, sacrifice was sacrificing anger,
Hmm.
control, guilt, shame, self judgment, a bunch of cuss words, just giving
Yeah.
those all up and
Yeah.
saying, you know what? I'm giving this up. I'm letting this go. I'm sacrificing this to have the life I actually want,
Yeah.
not the life that I think is owed to me or the life that I will fight and struggle and hold control for, but the life that I actually want is one of ease and bliss and joy and increase and abundance and all these yummy things. So what can I release? If it's money, you just release the amount of money required to go through the training and have the experience. If it's control, like you clearly, if you've been going through this for a long period of time, you don't know how to control the situation. So maybe give up control
Mm-hmm.
and hand it over to somebody who's more experienced, like the guy who knows you want a banana in 3 months,
Right.
and make sure that the tree grows, the fruit goes to the store and goes to your home.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Aaron. This has been way fun. I'm looking forward to tuning into more of your podcasts and learning more about the 7 pillars, and the rest of the work that you're doing. I'm also excited for folks to work with you. I can see a lot of good happening in the world because you're stepping up and not only doing your own work, but also sharing your progress in that work with other people.
Yeah. It's
It's
so
awesome.
fun. It's so fun. It's just
So
adorable.
rewarding. And when other
Yeah.
people pick up the torch, like that gal going from betrayal trauma into coaching, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it's
that's
so fun.
that's a lot of movement.
Yeah, it is. And so fun. So fun to see it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Do you have like a wrap up that you do at the end of it for
Yes,
folks?
I
Okay.
do. I just want to let you guys know that we'll be chatting more with fabulous people like Tyrell, and last week we chatted with Bronwyn. So I'm not exactly sure who we've got on the roster for next week. I'll be honest. You might just be hearing from me, but you know, I want you guys to know that every single message that we bring to you guys on this podcast is with you in mind, you know. And with that, from my heart to your heart, we'll see you guys next week. Bye, everyone. Mwah.
Love y'all. Mwah.